Welcome to CMO Huddles Studio, the live streaming show dedicated to inspiring B2B awesomeness. I'm your host, Drew Neiser, live from my home studio in New York City. Agentic marketing is having its moment. The promises are huge. Autonomous campaigns, always-on optimization, personalized experiences at scale. Come in. And marketing teams that move faster with fewer manual handoffs. As I said, the promises are big, but CMOs do not need another bright, shiny object. They need to know where agents are actually creating value, where human judgment still matters, and what it takes to move from impressive demos and these other little things to dependable workflows. Because when it comes to agentic marketing, the real opportunity starts where the hype ends. And fortunately for you, we have three marketing leaders ready to share, dare I say, their bleeding edge experiences. So with that, let's bring on Mark Abramowitz, CMO of Dataiku, who is joining the show for the very first time. Hello, Mark, and welcome.
Hey, Drew. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here. As they
first
say,
time guest, long time listener?
That's exactly right. First time guest, long time listener.
All right. Well, anyway, so how are you and where are you?
I am doing really well. I live in the Bay Area out in Danville, for those that know the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area well. I'm just back from Vegas at a AI4 at a conference where it was 115 degrees outside.
Wow.
So very happy to be back and even be outside for some time after 3 days at the Venetian.
I can't help but notice that strategically placed. Is that R2D2? What do we got back? Who's that? C3PO? What's back there?
That is R2D2, and those are some prints actually of some that I picked up in Hawaii of like someone taking some Star Wars figures and making them sort of Hawaiian, putting on surfboards and Hawaiian sunsets. Just really, really kind of cool.
Very cool. All right. Well, if we do a show on May 4th, so May the 4th be with you, we will make sure to have you back for that one because we need a Star Wars CMO episode. I feel very strongly.
I'm in.
All right. Well, note to self and team. So seriously, I know that Dataiku is using your own AI platform inside marketing before asking customers to bet on it. Talk about being customer zero and how that's changing the way your team builds, tests, and proves agentic marketing. And maybe you could even define agentic marketing for us, because I think people will have that question too.
Sure. Happy to do that. So first, just a quick introduction on Dataiku for those that don't know. We are positioned as the platform for AI success, and we help large enterprises in regulated industries like banking, pharmaceuticals, life sciences, people like LVMH and Johnson & Johnson and Roche to build, deploy, and govern AI. And so, as you say, we are ourselves an agentic platform, and so we are AI forward by necessity. As we position and sell this platform to enterprises, we have to be the proof. I want my marketing team not only to get the benefits of agentic marketing, which we can talk about in a second, but it's also about educating and having my team really understand the ins and outs, whether you're a field marketer or an event marketer or a product marketer. I want all of them building on Dataiku so we can deliver better experiences and better positioning and messaging to those large customers. And so it's really about getting hands-on. And so for me, agentic marketing is, and we'll talk a little later, I think, about some different stages. But for me, as we talk to our customers about, like, it has to solve a business problem. So we're well past the let's get some tools and build a stack and work on some pilots. I think now, as we talk to our customers and are internalizing this at Dataiku, is what is the business problem you want to solve, and how can agents in their various forms help that, whether that is better pipeline, more efficient pipeline, more cost-effective pipeline, brand building or content generation. Like, there has to be an outcome for the business that's driving the need.
And first of all, I love companies where you have the opportunity to be customer zero, or as we'll hear a little bit with Kathleen, who calls it dog fooding, you get the opportunity to use your own product. But what it forces you to do is become an expert, and often can become sort of a leading edge product informer, right? So you can see where the issues are as well as you try to use as your own tools. So talk about, maybe give us one example of an agentic workflow so that we can wrap our minds around what it is that you're doing and how that's different from what you did 2 years ago.
So there's a couple different things that we've done, and one way that we approach it, and this is again something we also do with our customers, is we believe governance is a really important part of the agentic transformation. And so one of the things that we've done at the company, and specifically in marketing, is we've created a kind of a 3-level governance program that also sort of distinguishes between sort of self-service agents, where maybe you go build them themselves and it's about content generation, reviewing content, press releases, blogs, which we call bronze. Mm-hmm. We have kind of a silver level that our marketing operations and our go-to-market engineers in marketing own. And that's a little bit more complicated, maybe requires a little bit more engineering capability or understanding of our platform. Things like we access a lot of data. And so now we have a conversational interface we call Dashboard 360. So I can ask, anybody in marketing can ask questions about data, performance, registrations, pipeline, and do it all in a way where I don't have to go to like a whole bunch of dashboards anymore. I can just talk to my data. And that's an example where like an individual marketer couldn't build that, but our marketing operations team is able to do that on our platform. And then we have another tier, which we call Gold, which is like the big process oriented things. And so that is where we partner with our central AI engineering team that has full governance. So things like campaign optimization. How are we ingesting all the signals from the web, from 6 Sense, from our first party events and third party events, and tailoring that campaign and content optimization for the accounts and the buying groups that we're targeting. And so I think it's really important to think about what can you do as a self-serve in marketing, because again, we all want to be skilled and ready to go, but then there are going to be some more complex and maybe higher sort of business outcome oriented agents or agentic processes you want to go. And I think it's really important to have a governance process to be able to manage that, bring visibility, and prioritize.
It's such a great and simple framework. And honestly, we haven't had that come up in a huddle. So I so appreciate you sharing it, because where I think most of the initiatives are happening is at the bronze level, where, we're solving content issues that don't put the company at too much risk, other than say brand risk if bad content gets out there. But the silver and the gold is, to me, where things get exciting. And I think if I'm distinguishing between the silver and the silver is access to sort of data that you have in-house, and you're basically giving yourself, the one example you provided, the dashboard's 360, whereas the gold involves a lot of separate outside things. There's APIs, there's data that's coming in and out, and I feel like I don't know what's the big distinction between silver and gold is the degree of technical expertise required to get it done.
So I think that's a factor. I think it's also that silver is something that we in marketing can do with our operational. So it's, if you think about Dashboard 360 or building a digital twin, or those are things that marketing can own. Right. We do have a central at Dataiku AI engineering team that is building tools and skills that others can use. So silver is about harnessing those things, like how do we read and write to Salesforce if we want to do that, or how do we get data out of Snowflake, which is a big part of our infrastructure. But it's mostly contained in like a marketing, I hate the word department, but a marketing oriented process. Right. Whereas gold is meant to be a little bit to break the departments and start to think about enterprise level type processes. So this is where we sort of bring it to the executive level, and we say, what can we do for go-to-market, meaning sales and marketing and post-sale, and are there processes that we can bring to bear that break down the silos that are inherent in larger organizations. And so, yes, there's technical complexity, but the goal is a more or sort of enterprise-wide,
right?
Maybe not the entire enterprise, but a few parts of the enterprise outside of marketing, where Silver is very much focused on things that we can do and that we are building and optimizing for ourselves.
Okay, and I appreciate the distinction, and again, I think the framework is really helpful. I'm curious. So, the results of you've done a lot of different things here. We talked about bronze, silver, and gold initiatives, and one of the things people are really struggling with is, yeah, it's so cool, I now have this dashboard, or yeah, it's so cool, I'm getting my content out faster. But one is sort of demonstrating business value. But I guess before we even get there, let's just talk about, how has this changed the way your team looks? Like, do you need fewer people now, or they're spending time doing different things, or you have different expertise? So let's just talk about that first.
Sure. So I don't believe generally that this agentic revolution is going to mean we're going to like have less people necessarily. But what I do believe is we may not have as many over time. And I believe that what has been the impact on the people? I think we are finding that certainly people are being more productive. We have some content writing, to your point, content writing agents. We have a prompt desk to help people build better prompts and get more out of Dataiku, which may be connected to OpenAI or Anthropic behind the scenes. But I think as I've been recruiting over the last 6 months, I'm looking for people who, one, are AI literate, and there's certainly certain degrees of that, and that are more system thinking oriented. So, you might hire a product marketer or a field marketer, but I don't, and yes, not that I want them to be super horizontal, but I don't want them to only think about their function. I want them to think about how they connect to their peers, if you will, across the marketing spectrum. Because I think we still, and I'm sure, I would imagine others have similar challenges, is, we're about a 65-person team, and even within marketing, silos develop. And so I firmly believe that we have to focus again on the outcome. And I mean, obviously, each function is there for a reason. They have skills and capabilities. But now I look for people who are willing to and able to and have experience thinking more horizontally outside of their core function, and have a bit of a systems orientation in how they see their work and the things they're trying to accomplish for the company.
Well, we're going to move on, but I just want to make a note to come back to the two things. One, about system thinker and what's that mean for the creativity of the company down the road. It'd be an interesting one to talk about, and sort of business impact if we have the same people just working differently. But we'll come back to both of those. So, but now let's bring on Kathleen Booth, who is the VP of Marketing at SQL, who is joining this show also for the first time. Hello, Kathleen. How are you?
Hey, Drew. I'm good. How are you?
I'm flocking awesome, of course. But so where are you on this fine day?
I am in my home office in Annapolis, Maryland, but I too just came from Las Vegas from AI4, where I actually met Mark for the first time in person. So we went all the way to Vegas to meet so that we could prepare for this interview.
I love it. Well, yes, we love it when huddlers connect. It's just an amazing thing in the wild, as we say.
Yeah.
So let's talk about SQL and dog fooding and workflows, and let's just talk and agents, and what.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
So first, SQL, for anyone who isn't aware, hosts live and on-demand videos on your website. And then we have an agentic layer that builds, scales, and converts every video program into first-party pipelines. So the whole idea with SQL is you set up these agentic flows once, and then you watch it run like a loop. And we absolutely are, much like Mark talked about, we are customer zero for our own product. What I just described is something that we're in the process of releasing to the market. So this is very new. And I'm actually going to revise. We're not going to call it dog fooding. We're going to call it drinking our own champagne.
That's just fine by me.
Yeah. So I'm happy to describe some of the ways that we are doing that. I would say webinars, virtual events, video, that is the heart of our go-to-market strategy. We are the video platform. We put video at the center of everything we do. And so we have a media brand called Game Changers. And within that, we do 2 content series. One is called CMO series. These are 30-minute thought leadership interviews with chief marketing officers. And then we have what's called Masterclass. And that is a longer, much more tactical deep dive into how marketers are running their video and virtual event programs, literally step by step. And so we have these 2 series, and we are using our own platform to run them. And some of the ways that we're leveraging the agentic capabilities, I think first is we have a piece of our agentic platform called the Build Agent. And because we embed on the website, what I love about it is the typical webinar goes like this. It's you create your webinar, you build a landing page, you embed a form, you get your registrations, then you have to sync that with your webinar program or platform rather. Then you have to send your attendees to that platform to watch the webinar. Then you get the video. If you want to show it on demand, you got to build another landing page. You got to upload the video. And it's just this janky, multi-step pain in the neck. Every web person I talk to who runs webinars says they are high impact, but they're a nightmare to execute. And so what we've built and what we're doing and testing on ourselves is this platform where we can conversationally talk to the agent on the front end and tell it, hey, build me a webinar series on this topic. It will look through all of our past webinars and it will tell us what topics do well, who are the speakers that have performed really well. It'll suggest titles for the sessions, write descriptions. It will actually build the landing page on the website for us and create the graphic assets. So all of that administrative front end that goes into just even getting to the starting line of webinars, it's building agentically. And that includes all the emails, by the way. So the registration emails, the follow-ups, the reminders, that's all built agentically. Then we run the webinar and we have another agent that monitors while it's happening to make sure the tech is working, the connection speeds are good, nobody's accidentally on mute, and also can help with the engagement. So we run polls and comments and questions during it. As soon as that event ends, we have our agentic workflows set up so that we don't actually have to do anything or trigger anything. It knows, it automatically takes that video, and it not only does it put it back on the site as an on-demand video, but it will write up a summary of the event, put that on the website page. It will build short clips for social. It will write the LinkedIn posts. It will write the blog. We can even publish the blog. So all that follow-up is happening. And then the third piece, the last piece, and then I'll stop, is the convert agent, where we are able to contextually enrich everything that somebody who attended a webinar did in the event, but combine that with everything they've ever done on our website. So I know, for example, that Joe Smith came to my webinar. I know how he answered the poll question, and I can combine that with, did he look at the pricing page? Which product page was he looking at? What's the history of Joe himself as well as his company at the account level? And we put that contextual summary that's automatically synced into our HubSpot CRM. So my BDRs, I run the BDR team, can run their follow-up sequences off of that with very personalized emails that are specific to that individual's situation. So our goal is honestly to cut out 80 to 85% of the time that the team spends working on webinars so that we can focus on turning it into pipeline, because that's why we're doing it.
So thank you for that deep dive. And just we are excited at CMO Huddles to actually be our first expert huddle will be going out on SQL on Monday. That's Monday, August 10th, and expert huddle with Lisa Cole. It's our first chance to test. I wish we were doing this show on the platform. We will be doing future shows, but we're super excited to see all of these things develop as you move forward. And you know what's really interesting to me in the context of, as CMOs think about what are we doing with agents and AI, this is an example of where you could try to build all of those workflows yourself, or you could buy it. And I think this is an interesting moment for CMOs to be thinking about this? Like in both your case and Mark's case, obviously you're using your platform to grow your business. And so it just makes sense for you to do this. But I think as others out there are listening to this show, they really have to start thinking about, yeah, it's easy to build, but is that a business that you want to be in? Right? I mean, and I think that's an important part of this story with agentic marketing. So anyway, there's a question in there somewhere, and I'm going to get to that.
Yeah.
So what are you sort of seeing as the strongest fits for agents, or maybe you've already covered that?
Well, first to the build versus buy conversation. I am a builder at heart. I'm building a ton of things. I live in my Claude Code instance. And I will build. I will do it. I would say the one thing about what we do that's unique is whenever you're talking about video, I think building your own is a little bit more risky, because especially if you're embedding video, there's responsiveness issues like multi-device compatibility. It gets much trickier. It's different than saying like, I'm going to vibe code a website page with a bunch of copy. That's a whole different proposition. And so that's one of the reasons I think marketers really rely on us, because making sure that video renders seamlessly is a tricky business to be in. So just that one caveat. I would say in terms of where does it make sense to use agentic flows, where it doesn't, I think there's so much that these tools can do and that AI can do. At the end of the day, though, you own the work, right? And I just wrote about this on my Substack. So I have a newsletter called Code Meets Creed, where I talk about exactly this topic of like, how do you balance AI with what humans should and can be doing? And to me, it's like, you cannot, if something is not good, if the work product is not good, you cannot blame it on AI. It is your work product, and you have to be able to stand behind it. So I think the question that we as marketers need to be asking ourselves is, if I let an agent run unsupervised on something, am I willing to personally stake my reputation against the output that it's going to come out with? And if the answer is yes, great, do it. If the answer is no, then you need to have a human in the loop. And I talk a lot in my newsletter about what I call the bookend strategy, which is I'm a big fan of, especially when it comes to generative AI, giving it your point of view on the front end, giving it as much information as you can to help craft a really good prompt, letting it run, and then on the back end, really looking through it and sort of the trust but verify thing. Even with data, I've found, especially when I use AI for research, like it'll give me statistics and sometimes I'll dig into it and I'm like, it just made that stat up. That doesn't exist. And so we've got to verify these things, because it is our work at the end of the day. And there's truly reputational harm that can come about if we're not careful in checking what it produces.
So have you seen, and how has your team structure changed as a result of this? And again, I'm not going to hit you with a business value yet, because I want the whole team on this, but have you seen that, one, you're hiring differently, like Mark suggested, or two, that your team structure is changing?
So I would say, first of all, I agree with what Mark said, that I don't see myself cutting anybody because of AI. I do see myself hiring a lot more slowly, because I'm really looking to push the limits of the jobs to be done within my marketing team, what can be done by AI, and testing to see how far we can get before we bring on another person.
Okay. All right. That's fascinating.
Person on the things that can't be automated.
Right.
I don't want to pay for that.
Right. I mean, one of the interesting parts of this is there's a lot of cost associated. Now, in your case and in Mark's case, this is your product. So you're using your product to sell your product. So it's really a thing, but I do want to get into this, but now we got to move on to Charles Groome. So we'll be back. So let's welcome Charles Groome, VP of Marketing at Insightful, who previously joined the show several times to talk about marketing org design, event strategy, and category creation. Hello, Charles. Welcome back.
Hey, Drew. How are you?
I am fantastic. Just to ground us, where are you this fine day?
Well, I did not, unfortunately, make it out to AI4 like my illustrious colleagues here. I am just a few steps away, though, from the New Year's Eve ball in Times Square at our headquarters in Midtown. So enjoying steamy, humid New York City today, where it's going to get up to the mid 90s.
Yeah, it's a little steamy here. Oh well, it is summer, it is August, so here we go. So I'm curious, you listened to Mark and Kathleen as you what kinds of things struck you in that first part of that conversation?
Well, I think the first thing is using your product to sell your product. And everybody's got something in AI product these days, especially if you're in tech. We have a similar kind of capability, and I know we'll talk more about this as we get deeper into how we're using AI to also improve the way that we work. But for everyone who doesn't know, Insightful is a work data platform, and so what we do is we capture activity, the way that people work on a day-to-day basis, and then we make that available for insight generation through an MCP connector. So we allow leaders, marketers, et cetera, to figure out how are their processes working and where can they implement agents or automate processes. So I think that, and the notion that we are going to hire more slowly or more deliberately definitely resonated with me in conjunction with that idea, Drew, of using AI to delve into where do we have bottlenecks, where do we have inefficiencies in our process, where do we maybe have overlaps that we can eliminate so that people can be a little bit more horizontal without kind of stepping on everyone else's toes.
Well, just to make sure we get specific, sort of what has your adoption of AI benchmarking helping your teams or work faster? And maybe you could share a specific use case.
Yeah. So again, Insightful is a product that is able to measure activity that people in the company are doing on a day-to-day basis, and it aggregates that data up to an executive summary level, so we can see how much time people are spending on different marketing processes. Where are our content writers spending time researching versus writing versus editing versus project managing versus doing admin. And so we look at all of those pieces of each team member's process and we identify the lowest hanging fruit with data to back it up that says you're spending 45 minutes of admin time just jumping between project management and communications tools every single day. What if we asked Claude to go and send that update that you're spending time compiling and push that across the org? And something, I think we'll get into this as well, but something else that I'm really focused on is where can marketing develop relationships and be more of an enabling department for the rest of the organization. Something that I think sometimes you struggle with in the CMO chair is how do you get the rest of the company to reflect and build on the work that marketing is doing. We've really emphasized cross-department agentic workflows, and we've really started, at least as we've been building this team over the last 8-9 months, we've really started there by saying, how can we enable sales and success? Where can we pick up insights from product and engineering and kind of use agentic workflows to get those flowing throughout the company?
And I'm going to dig in a little bit deeper. Just so I understand conceptually what you're talking about. I want to make sure that we walk away with a specific example of an agent that you're built that has helped your team be more, and I know your product does this, but focus more on the, and I'll give you an example of an opportunity. Evidently, salespeople spend 20% of their time actually selling and 80% of their time doing other stuff. If that number is correct, and someone was using your tool and said, hey, I think we could get that number to 40% selling, that would be huge for an organization. So I'm just curious, what kind of challenges are you tackling with agents that are making a difference so far or that you expect will make a big difference?
Yeah, a couple that we've seen in this illustrative example of connecting the organization together better. One is there's all kinds of intent signals that marketers are using. We have HubSpot buyer intent data, ZoomInfo websites. We also have embedded story lane demos on our website. And we pick up these signals, but they're all relatively disconnected. You can configure a workflow in each of those tools to kind of push an update, but who consumes that? What we've done is we've stitched that together with the CRM, tasks, sequence enrollment automatically flowing for the AE or the SDR, depending on where in the buying cycle that particular account is. And when the intent signal is triggered from one of those platforms, it alerts those agents. They run the automation workflow that says, let me consume data that comes from the intent signal. Let me contextualize that and do more research. Let me hydrate the account record with more contacts that are, multiple personas that may be missing from the profile. Let me assign that primary contact or the relevant contacts to the right sequence so that the AE can kind of work through their queue. To your point, do more outbounding and less admin.
And did you build this yourself?
Correct. This is all thanks to Anthropic, though. Claude is our weapon of choice. We have also, we actually measure kind of adoption levels of different AI interfaces and models. And across our company, Claude is number one. GPT and Gemini are kind of neck and neck, depending on the department. I will say customer-facing teams use Gemini more. Engineering teams are still using GPT a little bit more often. And then obviously we also will capture add-on tools like a Granola, for example, so that we have a picture of where should maybe the organization spend more time or invest in more licensing for these different AI tools as well.
It gets pretty complicated pretty fast. And
yeah.
Have you seen as a result of doing this, building this, and by the way, I just love the notion of hydrating your customer things. And by the way, it's like I built a workflow that goes from Granola to Claude GPT to HubSpot that does exactly that. So whenever I'm talking to a huddler, that a little recap that comes from Granola gets tagged in it's quite helpful. And that's just a mini one. The one you described had multiple elements to it that
it's 5 or 6 layers and it can break.
And that's what I wanted to ask. This is the challenge when you build yourself.
Yes. And so, one of the things, I know we'll talk more about how do you disseminate agentic workflows, right? And not just, silo them inside of one person's instance of Claude code. It's not a good thing, right? So we have created a framework at Insightful that follows a 3-layer process map. Personal use cases, that's where you do piloting. So I started this out as just Charles had a good idea in a meeting and I wanted to see if it would work, right? So I did the first 3 connector steps. I took story lane intent signals, I sent them to Slack, and then I used that to create a task. And I just tried it out with our VP of sales at the time, and that was where I started. Then I created the documentation around it. I started sharing it out. That became a departmental use case, and we created a Claude project that was shared. And then from there, we have a committee of sorts. It's really our head of product and our head of finance and our head of RevOps who will evaluate all of the use cases that leaders in the business are executing with AI. And on a monthly basis, they showcase those and they basically adopt the ones that need to be managed at the organization level so that, this siloing doesn't go on endlessly. Or, the other issue is people repeating the same agentic workflow. Imagine if sales had the same good idea before I did, and we built exactly the same thing. Now we've created 8 different tasks and we can't get on top of ourselves. So part of it is that. And then there is this, constant need to measure where you're at because people are building so fast. And that's where we use our own product to do that and reveal to us, okay, the marketing team is building workflows of these types. the sales team is building these other workflows. Here are two that are worth exploring to try and consolidate.
Yeah, I mean, I don't need to imagine it. I know what's happening, and the larger the organization, the more the agents, and we've got agent sprawl up the wazoo to deal with it. In theory, and again, I'm gonna tell this, and then I know I'm gonna make you wait on the answer. But at the end of the day, you build this workflow, something good should happen, and I want to get to that when we get back. But right now, it is time for me to talk about CMO Huddles. Launched in 2020, CMO Huddles is the only community of flocking awesome B2B marketing leaders, and that has a logo featuring penguins. Wait, what? Yes, well, a group of these curious, adaptable, and problem-solving birds is called a huddle. And the leaders in CMO Huddles are all that and more, huddling together to conquer the toughest, if not the coldest job in the C-suite. So Mark, Kathleen, Charles, you are all incredibly busy marketing leaders. I'm wondering if you could share a specific example of how CMO Huddles has helped you.
Sure. I'll go first.
Yeah, you're the longest. You've been with us the longest. Let's do it.
Okay.
Mark, I'm sorry. Mark, go for it.
It's okay. As Drew knows, last summer I was transitioning from being a product marketing leader to being a CMO. And I met Drew at another go-to-market gathering, and I founded the resources and really the community that I was able to participate in really helpful in the not only job search but also kind of the onboarding and first 90 days, 180 days, which I'm now well past on again the resources, but really the people, the connections that I was able to make were really helpful in helping me get off to a really fast start as the CMO at Dataiku. And so I found it super valuable. And so I appreciate your support, Drew.
Delighted that you joined us. And yeah, if you're a first-time CMO, that's definitely a place we're working to get stronger and stronger at. Charles.
Yeah, I think, Drew, you and I actually connected on this just the other day on one of the huddles. I've really enjoyed connecting one-on-one with other CMOs in the organization, whether it's on Slack, where everybody's always willing to provide a tip or make a referral or make an introduction, or just earlier this week, I met with a fellow CMO huddler, and we were talking positioning. She had a platform strategy that she was trying to conceptualize for her sales team. We're in the middle of a rollout of a platform strategy. We could compare notes. We could really talk it out for 30 minutes and get some real actionable next steps. Something that I actually this morning took over to our head of product came from that meeting. So, the one-on-one connectivity that you guys foster is just incredibly valuable.
Well, we appreciate that and that you take advantage of that as well. Well, Kathleen, you're relatively new to CMO Huddles. I hate to put you on the spot, but I'm going to put you on the spot.
Let's do it. I would just plus one to what Charles said. Since I've been a part of the group, I know that your team has connected me with another CMO who has done a large product launch in the past, and I have a major one coming up, and I just wanted kind of another pair of eyes on my plan, make sure I wasn't missing anything. And it was just nice to hear how someone else has approached this and their experience. So I had a lot of great takeaways from that. Gave me some good ideas.
Well, we so appreciate you and the three of you being part of the community, because it's like you are it and you help us grow. But if you're a B2B CMO, particularly if you're a first timer and you need to get your bearing and need a one-on-one with someone who's been there and done that, and also gain recognition as a thought leader, or maybe even get your own stress penguin, please join us at cmohuddles.com. Okay, so much to cover and not that much time. Let's just talk about this big issue that I have been really pushing on. We had Paige O'Neill and Micheline at a live event in Silicon Valley last week. Micheline Nijma, who is from ThoughtSpot. And I pushed them about, can we show business impact of all this work that we're spending on, in something that a CFO would go, oh, great, because they know there's cost. And I'm just curious, where or when do you expect that you will start to see business impact if you haven't already? So, Mark, I'll just pick you on that.
Sure. So as we sort of talked earlier, we are at Dataiku. We've got this 3-level sort of governance model. In marketing, we've invested quite a bit in these bronze self-service, which are really about productivity. So there, it's about measuring usage and adoption, but that's not really the ultimate goal. That's a means to an end for AI literacy and pushing the product and being comfortable with our own tools. And so as I look forward, particularly in marketing, we are embarking on kind of reinventing our campaign operating model for a very account-based world. And so that is still to come. But the way that I am going to measure that, because I do believe the purpose of an agentic workflow or agents is to deliver business value, is are there points along the buying journey, whether that's in like better and or faster account identification or even prioritization, reducing the marketing accepted lead to sales accepted lead to stage 1 pipeline, and having that measurement in place that we can take a reduction in time to get through ultimately reduces the sales cycle.
Right.
And I want to be able to quantify that, because that ends up being actual business value. So that's like one of where I think we have the basic measurement in place to be able to start with a baseline, and then again look at can we speed up the very structured stages of what pre-pipeline, but also once it gets into our funnel. And then maybe number 2 is, and this is more of an ambition, but I do believe that from a media spend, there's an opportunity for optimization, again, to be more efficient based on signals that Charles described. There are signals coming from all these different places now that we can gather. And so can I not just be more efficient, but like, can my media spend deliver more for me based on some smarts and some thinking? And so I'm really focused on these 2, what I think are very measurable places that have impact to bring an agentic workflow to sit behind it. And we are, deep in the process of basically how are we optimizing our ABX operations to deliver on both.
It's fascinating. I think the key thing I want to just remind everyone listening is, if you don't have benchmarks, you will not be able to answer the question, the impact. So just whatever it is that you are trying to improve upon, even if it is, speed to lead kind of a thing, or speed to close, which is a big business opportunity, you need to know what it is today and how long it takes. So that's critical.
Which you might just add goes back to which is a little like cliche, but like the data does matter, right? And so before you start, to your point, really any of these reinventions or process redefinitions, like you got to have solid data from the get-go. And so like it's no small feat, right, to have clean data and trusted data that you can then baseline and build upon.
Very cool. So Kathleen, how are you looking at business impact? And because we know that we're spending a lot more on, token costs are not cheap. And the more you dive into it, and I'm sure in your personal endeavors to build, you're burning through tokens.
Yes, even though it's our own platform, there's still a cost associated with it. So, we're venture backed, and I think like many venture backed companies, we're seeing increasing pressure to optimize for ARR per employee, so annual recurring revenue per employee, meaning that we want to be able to output more revenue for the company for each full-time employee on the team.
Right.
And I think you can take that even down a step. And I'm looking, for example, because I do have the BDRs on my team, I am looking at BDR revenue acquired. And then even taking that step back further to what Charles was talking about, which is like, how many days per week do they have to sell instead of just try to build their lists? I'm looking, like Mark was saying, I'm looking at ROI at the channel level. We should be increasing that. Like if we're using AI, for example, to support our paid ads programs, we should be seeing higher ROI, just as we should from our events, just as we should from our content, et cetera. So I think you can take that down a few levels to look at those leading indicators. But at the end of the day, I do think ARR per employee is a pretty good proxy, because we're really trying to, again, not reduce the number of people, but we're trying to amplify the impact that the people we have are having on the company.
Now, I have heard that in Silicon Valley, it was $250K per employee, and wouldn't it be great if you could get that to $1 million ARR per employee? That is sort of the numbers that I have been hearing. What that suggests is that employees are 3x or 4x more productive, which is hard to look at right now.
Well, I mean, it just as an aside, there's a really interesting case playing out publicly at the moment with ClickUp. I don't know if anybody's following this, but they are hiring a head of marketing who is going to be an individual contributor. And they're saying publicly that the comp package will be between $500,000 and $1 million. But they're expecting this person to be a team of one and do everything and just build. Right. And the value prop they're saying is, you won't have to go to meetings. You're not going to have people to manage. You are just going to build systems that compound on themselves. And I think we're all watching to see how this plays out, but it's very interesting because if they're successful, they will prove that they can really dramatically scale the impact of a single person. And at least in principle, that person will see the value redound to their benefit as well through a much higher comp package. So TBD on whether it will work.
Well, I have ranted about this twice now. There was a post about it on CMOHuddles.com. I think it's a brilliant publicity stunt. I also think it is a total, and you read the description of the job description, it is making a marketing leader simply a marketing doer. A leader walks the halls. A leader drives strategy. A leader doesn't just execute. And I looked at that description and I said, you don't really know what a great CMO does. So I personally, and I've talked to a lot of experts, one, don't think that's possible today. And I look forward to be proven wrong. But two, I think it disseminates this impossible vision that nobody is realizing right now. So yeah, now we have it. So now someone's going to walk into your office, Mark or Kathleen or Charles, and said, oh, great. Well, I'm going to pay you more, but you got to do it with one person. So great publicity stunt. I think it's terrible for the industry. And so pardon me for ranting on that. But I feel really strongly that this doesn't help the CMO community. And so thank you for bringing that up, Kathleen. And I get where we're trying to go. I challenge you to tell me anybody who's done it.
I don't think anyone has. I think it'll be fun to watch it play out. I think the person who's, at least publicly heading in that direction, but it's not exactly what they've described, as Elena Verna at Lovable. And she writes a lot about this concept of a high C, which is a high individual contributor, meaning like she is doing a lot of the work and also leading a lot of the work. But it's not what ClickUp is describing, just to be clear. It's like a step back from that, but it'll be interesting. I'm going to enjoy, eating my popcorn and watching how it plays out.
It's funny. We had Carlo Dietrich, who was inside at Lovable at the Super Huddle last year. And, at the end of the day, it's impossible to model anything that Lovable is doing because of the way the company behaves. Like you talk about governance, that term doesn't come up.
Yeah, it doesn't exist there. Yeah,
it doesn't. So yeah, the natives can run wild. You want to go do something, go for it. And it's interesting, and it's worked really well for them in their Swedish culture. But wow, again, it's this unicorn that's fun to talk about. All right. So getting back to real land here, what, if anything, are you seeing? How do you help folks avoid this random acts of agenting? I know, Charles, you already talked about by tracking it, you can see that people are doing this, but I'm curious, Mark, and I know you have the structure, but it's still quite possible in your org, the sales could build an agent and you could build an agent and we'd have two of them. And as Charles described, they're going to break.
So putting the people part of the process aside, I mean, part of what our platform does at Dataiku is we have something called Agent Hub. And so we have built into our platform, not like a duplicate checker, but to some degree, we have, we have built one of our own agents that can look for duplicative processes that are being run. And so I think some of this is what platform are you building on? And there's a lot of places to go and build agents. But I think back to, governance, I mean, you're basically questioning, your question is about governance, right?
Right.
And if you want, and I do believe there's a tension between empowering the call it the lovable model based on what we just said. Anybody can go build whatever they want
Right.
with, and depending on how big of a company you are, what's the corporate responsibility and governance that's in place. And so you need your tools to be able to support where you are in that spectrum of everybody builds to, well, we're sizable enough where it matters who can read or write to Salesforce or look at financial information. And so part of it is cultural, but we will do we track usage and we will do an inventory check. And I actually think this is it's actually a market opportunity for us externally, where I think there are agents at large enterprises that are being built that no one knows are happening. And so there's a whole segment emerging around inventory, discoverability, cost tracking for agents built on all these different platforms. And this wasn't meant to be a little commercial for Dataiku, but that is a business we're going into.
Right.
That's connected to if you're building on Bedrock or Vertex or Databricks or Snowflake or Salesforce, how do you get a handle on sort of the roster, if you will, in an HR sense, or what's actually running in your organization? But more simply, I think you need governance at the heart of these processes and this enablement that you're doing to make sure that people are actually talking to each other. Because at the end of the day, it's still about the people.
Well, it's interesting that this sort of segues into the next topic of security risks. And I have to tell, so there's internal risks and external risks. And the internal risks, I'll give you an example. So I actually built an application that measures AI maturity, and you'll be able to go to cmohuddles.com and take this maturity test, and built the whole thing from scratch and through GitHub and render and all these good things. And I go to put it on a web page on Webflow, and I came this close to wrecking the entire website because I'm not a Webflow expert, but I was able to create the page. But if I had clicked on one button, which would have changed the fonts and the sizes and everything, it could have impacted the whole website. And because of my ignorance on it. So I'm curious, when we talk about security and risk with all of this, there's sort of the internal level, and then there's the external level of what you expose the company to by building these things. I'm curious, and Kathleen, you're shaking your head positively. I wonder how are you managing security risks?
So I will just caveat this with, I used to lead marketing in a couple of different cybersecurity companies. And so this literally sends me into a cold sweat at night. And I do have waking nightmares that there's going to be some kind of a data breach and I will become the cause of it. Right. And I wake up in a cold sweat. So this is a big deal. And one of the things that I did when I first started working with AI at SQL, when I first joined, is I sat down with our CTO and I said, hey, I was brought on with a mandate to be very AI forward, and I'm super excited about it. And I really want to lean in and I want to build, but can you and I set guardrails? I want to understand from you, what can I and can I not do? What can I do, but I need to have you sign off on? What are those different levels of permissioning? And we had that meeting. I recorded it in my granola. I used the transcript to write up a charter essentially that we aligned on. And, I'm doing my best to live up to that agreement essentially, but I do feel like we're in the Wild West. I mean, I've written about this. I wrote an essay called "The Marketing Party Isn't Quite Over Yet," and I wrote that when the Vercel breach happened, because it hit me. I was using Vercel, and I woke up one morning and my CTO was like, let me know everything you've got Vercel connected to. We need to rotate the keys. And, I had that. That's when I started having my panic attacks of am I going to be the human vector that lets everyone in? And I think things are crazy right now. And you've got cases like Lovable where they're all doing whatever they want to do. But I do think there's going to be, if it hasn't already happened, there will be situations where a serious breach occurs and companies are going to clamp down more. In the meantime, I just think there's a lot of education needed on what the implications of these vulnerabilities are. Many of the companies we work for are SOC 2 Type 2 certified. And what does that mean? I think your whole team, especially if you have individual team members playing with AI, they need to understand what does that obligate you to as a company, so that as they make decisions, they're doing it wisely? Because in cyber, they teach you the human is the ultimate vector for infection. And that is true with AI as well. And there's so much education. So just as when we take our jobs and we all have to go through the cybersecurity education and we get the fake phishing emails to see if we're paid attention, I think we're going to need something similar with AI that tests us to see if we understand where we're exposing the company. Because right now, I would venture to guess that 90% plus of us really don't understand, and we're making risky decisions every single day.
It's fascinating. And I will just remind the listeners and all of us here that MarTech was responsible for some of the largest cybersecurity breaks in history, because the marketer bought the technology, installed it, didn't work with the CISO, brought it in there, and massive amounts of data was released, personal and private data, as a result of that. We don't want that to happen with AI. So yes, we don't want to wake up in cold sweats. So this is important to consider. We are running out of time. I would love to keep going on this, but I think I've got to get your final takeaways for CMOs who are trying to connect agentic marketing to business impact. What's your takeaway? And we'll go with Charles first.
Well, Drew, I tend to like to think in rules of three, and the impact and the business outcomes that we're trying to drive here, I think they come according to one such rule of three. So I like to start with looking for efficiency and output gains across one of three areas: people. So how are your people more efficient? How are they producing more for the same input time? Processes. So I talked about one such process with our SDR team and our AEs, but there's myriad processes that you can look at. And then the third would be technology. Where can we consolidate to one platform of record, or one kind of system that governs a particular discipline or distribution vehicle? So if you can find efficiencies and outputs across those three areas, that's your first kind of standard marker for business impact. And then I think you've got to build on top of that, but I still feel we're in the early inning of getting to that, full closed loop ROI.
Okay. All right. So then let's go with Kathleen.
I think Charles had such a good answer. I would say, in my mind, it's almost like a Venn diagram of the intersection of what are your channels that are performing really well, and what are the elements of the programs that go into those channels that are highly repeatable, highly process-driven. Personally, that's where we started. That's why we focused on webinars, because it was our main go-to-market motion, and it's very repetitive and process-driven. And where you see the overlap between those two things is where there's tremendous opportunity. Because if it's already a channel that's performing and you can make it more efficient, then you have a much higher odds of seeing business impact quickly than if you're going to spend that time trying to optimize a less well-performing channel that maybe there's a question around whether you should even be spending there in the first place. So that intersection is where I would focus.
Well, it's sort of back to EOS and priority and having your big rocks. And so if you're gonna do an agentic thing, what's the big problem that you're trying to solve, or opportunity, and putting your energy there? I love that. Okay, Mark.
Yeah. So building on what Charles and Kathleen and what you just said, Drew, I think AI first marketing, or agentic, is not necessarily about doing more. It's about being sharper about what you do and why. And to your point, it's almost like back to basics. It's about the business problem and not the technology. I mean, this is an amazing time to be in marketing. I feel like I'm more in the systems and the build mode than ever before. But at the same time, it's about what's driving the business forward. And so I think one of the most important questions to ask is, as you start, is what business problem are we solving? And what impact do we think that's going to have for the business? I think that the phase of let's try stuff and learn, let's hope we've all tried stuff and learned. And now it's about pointing this technology, the greatest shift we've ever seen, at solving real business problems. And I'll end with one other comment. I know we got to run. Is governance is an enabler. This is what we see with our customers. The ones that get governance right from the get-go are the ones that are actually able to move fast and harness the innovation, because they've got the guardrails in place before they start.
I love that. And such a good thing. I remember a great creative director said, a tight strategy is an enabler. And I would think part of governance will also be having great data. This is all falls apart if you have bad data to begin with. I do think that I want to challenge everybody listening to think about this notion, not just of efficiency in your operations, but how can you use these tools to help your customers? And when you start to think about it that way, and the big way of helping customers, you may unlock some really new and exciting ways of using this technology. I want to thank Mark, Kathleen, and Charles, your amazing sports. And thank you, audience, for staying with us. Please join us in 2 weeks when we'll be talking about marketing and product alignment with Michael Atala and Andrew Cox. Cue the music. CMO Huddles Studio is produced by Yashar Cuevas. Our production assistants are Laura Parkin and Melissa Caffrey. If you'd like to learn more about CMO Huddles, please visit cmohuddles.com. I'm your host, Drew Neiser, reminding B2B CMOs everywhere, no matter your challenges, it's warmer in the huddle.